So today we have an amazing, amazing friend and a powerhouse woman, a warrior, the founder of Disabled Black Woman, a writer, actor, and director. And she has a show called Rhythm Therapy, and she's worked with the Girl Trek in a various occasion in a various level. And she is a holistic wellness expert, and I'm so excited to have her on this today. Welcome, Janine.
Thanks, Yuko. It's so good to be here and be with you and see you, hear you.
Right? So you wear lots of hats, but I just want to first point it out. When we met, what surprised me the most was we were born in the same hometown, which is a small town in Japan.
Yes,
So
Misawa.
I know. So Aomori Misawa is a really northern part of Japan, and I was just
Yes,
blown away by the fact we're born in the same town.
I know. And I'm black.
I love it. I love it. Just let alone like not a lot of people know about my hometown. So
Yeah. Yeah, you were the first person I met, and literally I'm down here in Northern Virginia with my parents going through old photos and stuff, and I actually found some pictures of me in the stroller with all of the lovely Japanese people in the town adoring me. I have to send you a copy if my parents will let me. They don't do social media, but
mm,
yeah, it's really cool to see the pictures from. I was born in 1970, so at that time there was just it was very different in Japan. So in that particular small town, so to see a little black baby was like something that was a little African American cutie pie like me. In my mother dressed me up like a little doll baby. So I think that's why I became an actor because of all of the love that I received.
I love it.
In Japan.
In Japan, right? So again, you wear a lots of hat, but beyond all of the title and beyond all these identifier or hats, like who is Janine?
Well, I think the core of me is activism.
Mm,
Just being, it's funny to see and wonderful the things that I've been talking about and learning about my whole life become part of the narrative, the collective narrative, where I don't normally watch MSNBC, but I'm down here and it's on. So seeing them talk about the wealth gap and talking about systemic racism and white dominance in a way that I haven't seen before. Having Bernie Sanders talk about a basic and Andrew Yang about a basic living wage and affordable housing. These are all things um, as an activist, but also my activism is through theater. It's nice to see it coming into the body politic, I guess is what they call that. Forgive me if I'm using that phrase wrong, but to be to be into the conversation that's now coming to the forefront. It breaks my heart that it took another black body, another martyr for that to happen. I wish it could have happened with Rodney King. I wish it could have happened with Emmett Till. I wish it could have happened with all of so many enslaved black people from slavery. I wish it could have happened before we were even brought here to work the land. But it's happening now. So I'm hoping that what I do on the planet can bring the conversation to bring it along. We've got the baton now, so we've got to run with it until we pass it on.
I love that we got the baton that we gotta run until we pass it on. I love that you brought up your activism is through theater and storytelling. So let's dive into that. I had a pleasure and honor of witnessing your community organize
Ah,
last year.
yes.
You dive into such a depth in a very personal level, and that's what I really like about it. Every single story was a very human first and connecting with the audience on the human level, hence we got to connect and move from there.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah, of course, it was beautiful. So, thank you for inviting me.
It was great having you there. It was just such a great night too.
Yeah. My question to you is that you've been developing community organized for a while. So, like, what was your process like, and how has it impacted you on a personal level, as well as community that you are creating through this work?
Yeah, well, I started it, to be honest, because I've been acting. I graduated from theater school in '93, and I toured children's theater, and that's how I got my actor union cards, and I, did was out. Sound like a grandma back in my day. But just to give you a little background, like I did a lot of movement-based theater. The first play that I did was Harriet. It was a one-woman show about Harriet Tubman before Harriet Tubman was cool. It was called "Are You Ready, My Sister?" And I toured with that for like a year in Boston, and that's how I got my equity card, doing it at like halfway houses and schools for like girls reform schools up there. And I also toured with another company called Shoestring Players, and I went to the Edinburgh Festival. So moving to New York, developing a career, doing background work, doing under fives, working on soap operas continually. I was always turning down roles. When I was in my 20s, I was in my 20s in the 90s, and the roles for people like me were basically like crackheads or mothers who were abusive to their children, because I'm dark skinned and I have kinky hair, natural hair, and that's what they would see me as. And I never wanted that image to be in living rooms across America. And that's not how I wanted my parents to see me. So, but I felt like I didn't have the experience to write back then, because I didn't know, I felt like I hadn't lived. I was very sheltered growing up, and I started acting, even though I was 27, it was as if I was 17, because of the religion that I was in. So when the current occupant in the White House was running for president, I was seeing what was happening. I was seeing Black people getting beaten. I can't remember which Black person at that time was shot by the police, but that was factoring in. So I decided to start writing, because so much stuff was happening that was a disconnect. And Educating Becky, which is the first of the series, which is about a Black woman and a white woman who work out at the same health club, the high end health club. One's a lawyer, one is a mom who's married to a Black man and has biracial children, the white woman. That's based on an experience that happened to me at the gym, in the locker room, because all of these conversations happen in ladies' locker rooms, and particularly when you're in the high end ones. These women, after the occupant in the White House was elected, this woman who I've always been in class with, I mean, she saw me, but she knew who I. Yeah. So if you listen to the play, I'm putting the plays on my podcast so folks can hear them, and we can widen the community. My writing is a means of catharsis, and I see them as I've been told they're modern day parables. And what I was doing with Community Organized was bringing people together of all races as I center Black women's stories. And then we have a brave space conversation after the play. And there's dance breaks in between, because I like to dance. And dance for me, and I know I speak from a perspective of a cisgendered, straight, African American, Black woman. That's how I define myself. And my prejudices, I know that I will probably do harm by some of the things that I say, and from my perspective, so I apologize in advance, and I hope, to always come to this work with humility, but also with the openness that I'm going to make mistakes, and with the hopes that even through those mistakes that I make, that we can all grow stronger together, and theater is the place where we can get messy. So that's what I wanted to do when we were working in New York Live. And even then, before COVID, every people were slowly coming, but it was a big explanation, right?
Mm.
We still had to really get through a lot of stuff, which we do now. But it seems like non-Black people now are in the kindergarten phase of their social justice education. And I feel like how I can best be supportive while growing my community and being and honoring and centering Black women first is by telling our stories. So that's how Community Organized kind of came together. And I started because, I was hoping to get, I was in a writing class and with the Barrow Group Theater Company in New York. And I was in a writing class and the teacher was encouraging us to do short plays to get them into different little festivals. And it's also great to be able to, as a starting point as a writer, to start with something that's 10 minutes to get your point across quickly. And it's also good to write short plays if you want to transfer them into something that you're going to shoot. So that's how I started. And I love television. I television was my main educator and was my best friend, because as a kid by yourself, a Black kid on your own in Virginia in this weird religion, but I could watch TV. I just sucked up culture by what I saw in television and what I read. Writing the plays in this format, I in the future, when we are back together again and when the money is there to do it, my intention with VisAbleBlackWoman Productions is to make these into short teleplays for either for YouTube or short television series. There's so many different things that we can do with them, but the theater is my home, and to be able to do them live with a live audience, it really it there's nothing like doing this live so that people can actually use the actors as avatars instead of it being their own personal experience. And they can also relate to it, and then we can have the conversation and get messy, and practice being messy together in community. And the hope is that people keep coming back so that it's not just this one time, because one class or one play is not gonna work through systemic racism. We have to be together in relationship. And I'm hoping to provide opportunities, because we are a segregated nation, where theater can actually bring us together for those of us who want to do the work, because not everybody's going to want to do the work, Black or white, it's exhausting. But or Asian or Latinx or First Nation peoples or South Asians, all of us under these racial identity constructs, a lot of us want to just stay with our groups and live our lives, and that's valid as well. And for those of us who are willing to branch out and move beyond our identity groups to work in this way, that's why Community Organized is a platform.
Wow. I am really speechless because it was such a powerful experience. I'm not sure if you change the order of the plays every time you do, but like educating Becky was the first piece, right? Just how often we see that, how often we see that in our daily life, that really
That too.
immediately connect me to, okay, this is a real stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
And you allow the space to be messy. Theater can be really messy, and like even though we're in this place of COVID-19, we can't physically be in that space,
yeah.
and nothing can beat the physical in-person experience of theater. So I can't wait for the day like we can get together again and people are more motivated to join in this conversation. So I cannot wait for you to start this conversation more.
Well, you don't have to wait. I'm doing podcast play recordings of them, because I feel like, with COVID, I'm not in New York, and our theater company, the Barrow Group, sadly decided to give up their space that they've been in. We've been in for 15 years, I think. Just because with COVID, we don't know in New York when, we don't want people to be coming. I mean, theater is a petri dish. You're in a dark space that's no
Wow.
windows, with people talking and laughing for 2 hours or an hour. So they are not they've given up their space so they don't have to pay rent on it right now, and saving the money, and they've taken their classes online. So what I've done is I'm educating Becky is available on my podcast, which I'm a podcaster too,
Yes.
Productions, Visible Black Women Productions, on with an A, It's on Anchor and wherever you listen to your podcast. But we're recording. Educating Becky is up already, and I'm recording live podcast play readings and posting them. So we did a live podcast. So we have a live Zoom audience on my virtual studio on Core to Core, which is a dance platform and a movement platform. But we're artists. So Madison, who's the CEO of Core to Core, when I came to her with this, she's like, "Yes, let's do it. Let's do it." It's free. If people want to make donations or support me on Patreon with Visible Black Woman Productions, they can. But it's free to come to these readings. We say bring a libation of your own, get some wine, something sweet. If you want some dinner with you, you can eat, and just come to the virtual studio, and you'll hear the podcast play recording. And then we have a brave space conversation after. And I was so lucky and then they can't came for is the second play, and we did the recording of that on Friday night, and it was wonderful. It's very powerful. We sold out the reading, and my dear friend Carrie Kelly, who is a white woman who works with Michelle Cassandra Johnson, who's a Black woman, and they work together for the past 3.5 years in anti-racism work in the yoga and healing communities. So Carrie was able to come, and she did our white folks cohort when we broke the group into racial identity groups after the reading, so we could have a caucus in our racial identity groups, and then we came together as a community for a brave space conversation. I chose not, since that was the first one, I didn't record it. So what we're going to do is our actors, actually today, we're going to be recording our experience of the brave space conversation, so people can hear from the artists about, because the cast is ethnically diverse, gender diverse. So we don't have a trans person in this particular play, but we have other identities represented. And so we're going to discuss it for the podcast today. So that'll be up on the next for the next podcast play that goes up. And the thing is, with my since I do wear so many hats, like people are saying you have to do one thing, and the branding people, I'm like, you know what? I can't do just one thing. So I'm just going to have to like do what I need to do. So the podcast, it's about community. So one week it's an interview with someone that I love, a mover, a shaker, energy maker, soul journeyer warrior. So I have that, an interview. One week it'll be a moving meditation, whether it be journey dance, which is a conscious dance form that I facilitate, or moving meditations that I use with some of my health coaching clients. One week is a play. So it gives me the opportunity and the freedom to be able to do all of the things that I love while I'm here quarantined during COVID, away from my New York theater community, and not go insane. And I feel like, I don't know what's going to happen with plays in the future. We all don't know. And I think we as artists have to allow ourselves to utilize whatever technology is there to get our art out, because if I don't tell these stories, I will die, and they'll die in my laptop, and no one will ever have seen it. And the thing that's wonderful about now is that we all have the technology is there. We don't all have it, but at least it's accessible. And to those of us, even though we don't have much money, we have these devices that, even if you have the cheapest iPhone or smartphone with a camera, you can put stuff up on YouTube. You can put stuff up on Instagram. Anchor is free. You can start a podcast on Anchor and just get the stuff out while we are here in this moment.
If you don't share that, you're gonna die.
Yeah,
I totally get that sentiment.
you get that, right? Can you feel that? Or
Absolutely.
I'll go crazy.
Or I'll go crazy. I love that you're doing everything, like not letting anybody tell you like you have to focus on one thing. You're like, nope, I'm just gonna do my thing.
I tried. I got to tell you, I tried. Like, I keep trying to listen to coaches who say that, but so it's just not. I can't. It's like I don't know, and who knows? It may not work. It may be too much. But this is just it's just what it is right now. When I can do that one thing, I will. Yeah.
Sure, one thing could be the creating as a whole package.
Yes, that's
Have
why I said it's Visible Black Women Productions.
exactly.
That's the one. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me and understanding me.
Yeah, I understand the sentiments totally. Like I wear so many hats as well. So like what if people get confused about what I do? I'm like, nope, I create things. That's it.
Exactly. And it's an immigrant story too, because
Hmm.
you have to. When you don't
Yep.
have access, I don't. It's a privilege to be able to, in some cases, to just do one thing.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. And I want to bring a shift gear a little bit towards the holistic approach that you are creating. Everything you do, it's so holistic, mind, body, spirit. And I got to experience your rhythm therapy. Wow, it was just such a powerful experience. The way you hold space for the people who are in the room, you
Thank
have such a charisma and allow people permission to just be free and move their body and be with their body in that presence. What was it like for you to really come to the holistic experience? Being a holistic artist is not something where we start, but
Yeah.
you come to that space.
Yeah, that's a good question. The dance from rhythm therapy is built on is called Journey Dance, and it was created by a woman named Toni Bergens. Well, it was trademarked and by her. The foundation of that is comes in theater. When I was in conservatory, we did a lot of Monet Yakim. It teaches at Juilliard, and he had this book. He did the movement choreography for RoboCop, the movie, and that was one of our textbooks. But even before that, I truly do believe that, and I know for a fact that in at least in the Black communities of whose ancestors were slaves, enslaved people, we didn't have access to therapy. We didn't have access to someone who was going to actually like help us to get through the trauma and the violence and the rape and the oppression that built this country. And the way that we stay sane is through movement, dance, singing, our voices, our connection to something higher than ourselves, spirit. So I think it's a combination. I think that that has been co-opted and appropriated. I know that it has. Even, when Black Americans, enslaved Africans, were working in the fields, it was a white man. If anyone has listened to 1619, that origin of music is what everyone should listen to, because American music and the minstrel shows were grown from white people listening to Black people singing in the fields to heal us from the oppression that the white people were putting us under. And a white man put on blackface and mimicked that, and the white people loved it. And and a way for poor whites to become actors. Those were the first actors, you go, in America. The Italians were doing Commedia dell'arte. The British were doing Shakespeare. The Americans did Black people, and it changed the world. They were the first influencers, the minstrel show performers. They were the first startup people. They were the first pop, I guess, the first American idols were performing in blackface to make fun of Black people. And they made millions. And that was a way for white people to get out of poverty. That is the legacy of healing that I've known this always as a kid. I grew up hearing these stories. And so when I found Journey Dance, and what I feel like a lot of white people are good at is putting together, they're very good at constructing other people's creativity. And they are also, and that's a creative talent as well. But to be able to appropriate others, there's a craft to that, right? And to get people and to scale it up and get everyone wanting, including the people who created it, to buy it. That's a gift, and that's what they're very good at resourcing. Like even taking Black people who are happily the African the different tribes doing their thing in the riches that exist on that continent, to kidnap those people and to force labor is a brilliant way so that you can keep your hands clean and your family healthy and live in abundance and stay away from plague. So to be able to get a scholarship from Journey Dance and learn a structure that I could put it into and practice that structure for 10 years and then flip it and make it my own because it was mine in the first place, and do rhythm therapy, which is a movement-based theater experience that's grounded in Journey Dance, with Girl Trek, which is a Black women's health movement, centers Black women, and it's the largest Black women's health organization, and it's focusing on saving our lives through walking 30 minutes a day. And we did a wellness revival tour last year of 25 cities in the United States, where it was a free self-care event, and the women all got vegan, delicious food that was locally catered. There were flowers everywhere. I led rhythm therapy. We had a beautiful artist, Angela, who sang, and Veronica Very, who's a storyteller. So she procured stories, kind of like your I Am series, but it was like all Black women. She procured stories, and they told this and taught the women how to tell stories. Her company is called Wonder of Women. And then Vanessa and Morgan, who were the co-founders of Girl Trek, did a teach-in. So it was in the spirit of the civil rights movement, how they did teach-ins. Vanessa and Morgan taught women, Black women, how to organize Girl Trek in their neighborhoods. And I still, to this day, am getting Black women that I met throughout the country who connect with me and are dancing with the fan veils and sending me pictures of them connecting to their joy. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's also, as an actor, my favorite teacher, who was my toughest teacher, Mrs. Pion, back at the National Conservatory of Dramatic Arts, she used to say to us, Harold Clurman would say, because she studied with Harold Clurman, if you don't believe it, they won't. So I know that from her. I'm sure some famous acting teacher said that. So I'm always committed in my work to believe. And when I believe in what I'm doing, whatever it is, others do as well, even if the external circumstances say no. So I think that's why people are able to connect to it, because I am connecting to a legacy bequeathed unto me through my ancestors to survive. And not only survive, but thrive while I'm connected to joy.
So powerful. If you don't believe it, others won't. So, what is the vision of the world, or like, what is the world that you want to see, that you want to believe in, or you do believe in?
It's justice and freedom. You know, I have a dream speech. Trevor Noah was talking about this post. I'll send you the link. I may have sent it to you, about the whole looting stuff with the protests that are going on. And he brings up that, Black people were looted from West Africa, from the continent, to work here. Brings up the point that the I Have a Dream speech, people pick and choose what they want from that speech. There's a whole 6 paragraphs before he even gets to the dream. And Dr. King says, we have gathered here, and I'm misquoting, but basically he's like, America has written us Black folks a check that we tried to cash, and it was returned. And we're here. They came there to that march to cash that check, because what they were looking for and what we were promised was life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We didn't get that. So we're looking to cash that check and have our freedom and justice. He starts from there. That's like the 3rd paragraph in. He builds to that I have a dream, but that dream doesn't exist without freedom and justice. So I want a world where my rent and your rent where we pay the same amount of rent, because Black people in New York, we pay 10 to 15% higher in rent across the board. I want a world where there's affordable health care for all. I want a world where there's a basic income, because I know we can do it because we all got those little stimulus things. They can make more money. I want a world, did I say healthcare? Because I want healthcare. I want a world where we have access to the same housing. And that's what to start from. Like, that's the start. I want us to be able to have authentic fair ground, and I want to be repaid the debt that is owed to me and my ancestors. That's what I want.
Thank you for making it so tangible. The reason that I love to ask this question is, especially with this looting coming up, people fighting against something versus fighting for something are different, right? Like
Yeah.
we have to first name it in order for us to defeat it, but
Yeah.
what is beyond that?
Well, and asking why. There's another Trevor Noah. Also, I saw this today. I think her name is Kimberly Johnson. She really, there's an Instagram of hers that's very powerful about the looting. And this is something I need to do with myself, and even with, and I also want like authentic friendships, all of us, humanizing friendships and relationships where we don't give up on each other when we make mistakes and we piss each other off. Like, to be in the grime together and get through that. But she talks about the looting as, and I want to do this in my life and in every aspect, instead of worrying about the what, being also, instead of worrying about the what, look into the why. So when she talks about these people looting things, why do we parade wealth around people? Why is that our value? And then not allow these, and have the boot of the neck of oppression on people's necks, that they don't ever have access to it, right? But it's always around us, and it's all anyone talks about. Even Black folks, people of color who acquire wealth, the value of that wealth, that being the main resource of freedom, there's a problem with that when freedom is connected to wealth. And it is, because the majority of us, are connected to having to do things that we don't want to do. Even with the Me Too movement, all of the women who were not speaking, were not speaking because they were not free, but because of the possible money that they could get to live. That's not right. And those of us who did speak out don't have resources. We're older, and we don't have that pension and health that Ashley Judd has. She has a pension. She has health insurance for the rest of, when she retires, she has money from her career that all union actors have access to, and it's monetized by how much money you make through your career. So, we don't think these things aren't even coming into the conversations when we're having these, like, that's why I say we're in the kindergarten of all of this. And it intersects, these movements all intersect, and we haven't gotten to that point yet. How trans lives actually intersects. There was a trans man of color who was brutally killed, and we have the women's movement. Yes, we have to intersect. We have the LGBTQ community that also intersects. So once we know that our power is in our unity, we have the Native First Land Nation people's issues. We have the South Asian and the Asian American issues that come up. All of these, when we all come together, they keep calling us a minority. When all of the quote unquote marginalized groups unite, and when we speak for one another, we're the majority. And they're trying to keep us separated. So the more that, yes, when we're able to like help each other and let each other grieve and stand up when each other are grieving, when they get us, and then when we stand for, the next time someone who's Muslim, something happens, the next time, were we standing for Asian Americans when they were getting screamed at on the street during COVID? Were we posting? Were we doing that? Were we doing that for Native peoples? as they're getting COVID? Are we speaking for them? So I think a big part of it is us at first, speaking up for each other and letting each other have I hate to say it, the spotlight, because nobody wants that kind of spotlight. But when the attention, the eye of Shahraman, goes to one group because of systemic white dominance and oppression, the rest of us, instead of saying, what about us? This happens to us, and saying, no, it's wrong that that happens, and it happens to us too. Instead of being no, but be like improv and be like yes, and with our social justice. That's what we need.
Yeah, our whole life is a theater, and we get to be messy in it. I feel like you kind of answered the question already by listening to each other and having people the voice. But is there any additional call to action that you have for the world, especially right now?
Well, I've been really into saving the post office. So getting people just to write letters, since the occupant in the White House seems to want to defund it. And I think I haven't been up on what they're doing because of the world. I'm going to look into it more Monday. But John Oliver, if they watch Last Week Tonight, my vocabulary is in television and stuff. So he had a whole thing. I don't know if you can still buy stamps through him, but buying stamps, writing letters. One's coming to you. I was just going to text you to get your snail mail address. But if all of us just, number one, just start writing letters, and then Google Save the Post Office, and you can find whoever your congressmen, your senators are, your representatives, and start writing the letters and making calls on the post office, and funding the post office for whatever bill that is, pressuring them. While you're at it, if your state is able to do it, file for your absentee voting for the local election and for the election in November. I believe you can in New York, and you can in the state that I'm in Virginia. So particularly with COVID, if people are uprooted because of that, or if you've moved recently, make sure that you're registered, and if you can do absentee balloting in your state, you can do that. And the last thing I'll say is Vote Save America. That's a great podcast on Crooked Media that I love listening to. Or Pod Save America is, but they're doing this whole thing called Vote Save America, where there are battleground states that you can join, and you can work, and they send you texts. So you can do activism and voter registration and everything from your couch. So if you're quarantined in, you can take actions using Vote Save America, and you can pick a specific state. I think the states are like Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan. I don't know them off the top of my head, but those are some of the states. Texas. You pick a state, and they are creating all sorts of fun stuff that you can do to start to work on flipping those states, both for the local elections and for the electoral college come November.
Thank you so much for the clear call to action. I love clear call to action. Yeah, before I let you go, you already mentioned a few things that people can learn more about you, but how can people learn more about you?
Sure. My website is VisAble blackwoman.com. You can also find me as, I'm an able black woman, and I'm VisAble. So instead of visible with an I, it's VisAble. So that's why.
Love
So
it.
you can find me on Instagram. I'm trying to build my VisAble Black Woman IG. So you can also find me on Instagram, because again, I'm multi on there, and people are like, just have one. I'm like, I can't. At Jeanine Tyree is my main one. JeanneTyree. I'm also on Patreon, also at Visible Black Woman, patreon.com/VisAbleBlackWoman. Yeah, that's it. I hope that was concise too, because I'm trying to get that concise, Yuko.
That was very, very clear and concise.
Good.
Yes.
Thank you for this. I
Oh my
love this
God.
so much.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you.
Always.
Stay safe.